Hello everyone, and today I'm going to talk about a concept that is little known, and maybe even to most mobile players they won't understand and know about it, and it's the concept of pacing. Now, because I believe in upfronting the knowledge, I'm going to give you a brief outline of what the video is going to be about, and you can decide if you want to stay or you want to leave. So, pacing, I'm going to talk about, what is pacing in the game of Pokemon Unite, how do we use pacing to control the game, and I'm going to talk to you about my free easiest tips to actually influence pacing after you leave the video. So the next game you play, you're going to be pacing around the map and you'll be like, wow, this is some next level stuff. So if that's for you, feel free to stay. If not, please sub to the channel, leave a like, drop a comment on what video you'd like to see instead, and I'll try to do that. Okay, now for those of you who want to stay, let's get started. So what is pacing? I've got my favorite map up open here. And we're going to go into, the basics. Pacing is the act of, it's basically, imagine playing as white in chess. I'm moving first, and hence I am causing a series of events and actions which are predicated by myself. You are creating the flow of the game in that sense, right? So by pacing, it's like if I push and the enemy reacts, they're playing reactive gameplay, right? And that's good, where you're playing proactive gameplay. And that would be the essence of what pacing is. So actually understand pacing is it's not always about being proactive, but it's also about being reactive as well. So those two are whole different concepts for another video. So basically, pacing is the understanding of the game flow speed and implementing it into the game. I'll give you an example of pacing. A Hoopa respawns out of the base. It's level 9, so it has the level 9 Unite move. The first thing it does is run down to the bottom pad and use Unite move when there's only one defender, a Scissor. That would be creating tempo in the game and hence a pacing move. Now, let's go one further. The enemy team goes to rotate down and the Hoopa, after killing the Scissor and scoring some points, has moved to the top lane, dropped the pad, and then done this. And that is pacing. That is rotations, but forcefully. We were talking about rotation. Oh, so you want to counter this? You want to do this? This is now talking about another level of rotations. It's rotations with the game intention plan on the other side. You know that they want to do this. So you go and deny that by moving a step ahead, and you've set the tempo of the game. Now you will know, okay, I'm going to clear these graphics, right? Now we know the Hoopa's top. Now we know they want to come top and stop you, right? We know that. And it's beautiful. The Hoopa sets a trap. That is pacing, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, you have it right there. The Hoopa has put a masterclass on the enemy team. And as they walk into the choke, they get 5-man united by every single ability in the game, and they lose. They lose utterly. And for the last 2 minutes, who has been pulling the strings? Who has been playing the tune? Who is the composer and the grand magician of the game? It is Hoopa, the single-handed mastermind in the game. And that's what I'm trying to explain about pacing. So we were now saying, what was pacing? So this is an example of pacing. And what does pacing give us? Complete and utter control over not only our gameplay, but our opponents. Now, you might be saying, but Sulu, what if my opponent doesn't do that? Well, okay, of course, they might not do that at sometimes. And that's when you have to understand that pacing requires not just your actions, but you have to understand what your opponent is like. Are these players who will try to contest and fight back, or are they going to farm all game? If they were going to farm all game, sometimes you don't need to pace because you were just going to utterly crush them around the map. And technically, that would be called pacing on them as well. So that's something I want you to understand. If you're doing these good and talented rotations and movements, in addition to understanding that's going to be counterproductive for the enemy team, then you're achieving pacing. And now it's all about different types. So as I said, you can see the benefits. It quickly can shut down teams. And maybe you won't understand this just yet, but it's more about the late game and the mid game for pacing. The early game, there's a lot of little actions which are predicated on micro ability, but in the middle game, that's where a lot of the pacing gameplay actually reveals itself. And you'll see, I think the more talented supports around the world are masters of this. You'll see the top level supports actually control a lot of the tempo. The top level tanks control a lot of the tempo and really shut down games from the start because of their pacing. So we're going to go into another example. So let's just say this Hoopa is in the same game, and he's already putting on maestro work, right? He's getting the move left and right. Now Scissor is getting tired of this. Scissor's like, okay, I know Hoopa wants to move us around the map and abuse its ability to move. You need to consider that opponents' abilities matter as well. So we know that Hoopa wants to move. So what I want to do is I want to wait in this bush, get someone to bait, Like, and we're going to say that's going to be like a Tyranitar, right? We get Tyranitar to bait. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send 2 people down here to the top side. I'm going to send 2 people to the top side. This is like when we're looking like really coordinated gameplay. So it's less in your games. Maybe if you play with friends and stuff. And then we'll have 1 floating in the center. So what will happen is the 2 are hidden at top. Hoopa sees Tyranitar and they're like, oh, okay, Hoopa once more wants to control the pace. So Hoopa goes down to the bottom and gets half the team to cover bottom and half the team to cover top because we can do that with Hoopa. But Tyranitar is too strong for the Hoopa and starts forcing it out. So it calls for more help. And the moment the more help comes, Tyranitar backs off, Scissor backs off, and then the 2 come in here and get their points in or get their value. And now you can start to see the game of Pokemon Unite truly develop into this 3D game of actual movement and gameplay. It is not as simple as you'd like to make it believe. It is simple in the sense that we just click buttons and hope that our abilities land. But when you actually extrapolate further, you could be seeing yourself playing the opponent's game in a game that you think you're in control if you actually slow down and look at who's making initiative, who's controlling the tempo, who is the pacer of the game. I like to always explain this to my coaching clients like this. There's a pacing car in front of you when you ride a race, whether it's a bicycle race or car. There's a pacing car or pacing bike, right? And that's how you know like what's the speed. This is the advanced part. And I understand if it's too much, don't worry too much like about if you get this one. But the advanced part is that speed, you can slow it down as well. And that's when the things get interesting. So we see it going back and forth, aggressive, high-paced plays. We're forcing things. Now, and see, I think a lot of players can maybe instinctually do this, but they won't understand they can manipulate themselves to do it on a basis of control. Like remember, as I said, if you're doing it based on an instinct and just doing it like that, that's great. Some of the great players of all time will be able to make those plays and just be pacing naturally because it feels right. But then, if you don't actually understand what you're doing, you're not going to be able to implement it and maximize its effect in the grand scheme of things. You're not actually considering this is like a whole game plan. You're sort of just doing it because it feels right. And that's great. But when you look at a team game, actually understanding when to do something is the next level. So there's always more to learn. Now, talking about slowing down, it's like, okay, well, so the Hoopa's forcefully moving the map. Forcefully controlling the gameplay. And now Hoopa decides, okay, I get paid to decide when the music stops. And now with this score top, they're like, okay, give this, push bottom, and instead of breaking, or like as in this case, maybe it's not broken, and we'll just take all the minions. Then we'll go mid, take this, we'll go to the jungle, take 1 and retreat. Don't even bother pushing. Now, someone clears top. Clear this off rotation, and now you might see what was happening. You're thinking, okay, but then what is red side going to do? They have both pads in this situation. What do they do? So all the minions are lost here because these 2 have to back off because they don't want to die for free. And then these 2 have broken the pad and try to go up here, but someone's already cleaned all the minions. Someone has gone into here, cleaned this. You recall with these 2 creatures, and then you're wondering, we're spending the next minute doing nothing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when you control the timing and pacing of the game to such an extent where if you want to go, and fight, it happens. And when you want to do absolutely nothing, it happens as well. Pokemon Unite isn't just a game of forcing your hand down someone else's throat, right? You can be forceful and strong and powerful in the game, but you can also be gentle and slow and strategic. It's all about the right and appropriate time to use the tactics. And once more, this is just another example of different tactics being implemented to find different results. Now, this is probably not a play you're ever going to see in a solo queue, but I hope I've demonstrated my point to show you the mastery that this can get to. So what can you actually end up doing in your rank games, right? So what do we actually learn from this, Sulu? You're going to learn that there's going to be 3 key points for pacing. And I hope, those of you in the comments who are listening, please let me know down below what you think those are. Pause it, put it down, and I'll let you know in the comments if you're right. And you're just going to hear it here. But there's 3 key points. The first one is when your jungler hits level 9. Or like Unite move level, okay? Level 9 jungle. Then it's everyone hits level 9. Okay, so we got 2. And the lucky third one, of course, is when there's going to be an option to break a second tier pad. Now, the thing is, I feel like this is even something that almost no teams understand, but it's like even I struggle to get this point, because it's really hard to conscientiously give half the map, because you can break this pad guaranteed if there's only one defender. But then you're worried, oh, but then what if there's more defenders? And it's just like, but there can't be, because they want the objective. And if you're baiting correctly, only the support needs to be there to trick teams into giving people up for the objective. Players are inherently greedy. We're all inherently greedy. So you have to remember that when the Hoopa's here auto-attacking, yes, the Venusaur is going to face check it. Yes, the Venusaur sees just the Hoopa, and the Chandelure is going to come and like, oh, this is free one, and they steal it from him. Congratulations. In exchange for the 10 seconds you've wasted to run over here, you've lost 100 points into the top pad, and the home Regieleki is going to come in. But that's something that isn't seen. It's not extrapolated. Like, it's so hard to do because players, like, they don't want to lose something. You know, it's just like, I lose something and I gain something. It's like, most players want to play the game with Pokemon Unite so think, I gain and I gain. And realistically, yes, it's possible if you're a much stronger team than the opponent. But once you get to the more even teams, and you'll see this, watch Worlds back. For those of you who don't believe what I'm saying, watch Worlds back. Watch the LG versus Omo series. There is something LG were losing in exchange for getting everything else on the map, and they're so clever about it. I believe them that they probably had an understanding of the game plan of what they're willing to concede, but they gave and conceded so many things that were just worthless in the grand scheme of what they wanted to do. And I think this is just another example of like these things that you can implement. Don't do things, like don't fight over things that you can concede. You could take it, right? You could have a 50-50 chance of winning it, and I'm sure that's great. But if you just give it away and get something else, you're guaranteed value. And that's, I guess, the reactive part of this, right? Like, you know, being able to mix proactivity and reactivity. If you're taking high percentage gameplay decisions, you're going to end up on top, even if the other team is stomping you. Because you're going to end up level 15, you're going to pick off the last guys, and unless they group as an entire ball, the entire game, like, you're going to find ways to have an impact. So I hope that this has expanded your minds on this topic, and I've given some new insight and new light into how you can approach Pokemon Unite in the form of pacing. And pacing can be done by anyone, but I think generally supporters and tanks do it a lot better than other roles because they have a lot more free time. It's a cerebral thing. You need to think about it. And, you know, like for me, I played a lot of the central area, I played a lot of attacker, and I played a lot of a top lane. And at the end of the day, like for me, I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about clicking buttons. And that's why I can see supports fitting into this role a lot nicer. So I'd love to see, what do you think about this concept? What do you think about this topic? And what do you actually think you can gain and learn from learning about pacing? Let me know down in the comments. I hope that you liked and enjoyed the video. If you didn't, you know, let me know why. If you did, please let me know as well. And, you know, drop a like, drop a sub, turn noties on, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.